The sky over Manhattan grew unusually dark at 2:37 p.m. It wasn't a regular storm. It was as if a veil of deep gray had been cast over the skyscrapers, covering even the metallic gleam of the One World Trade Center with a shadow that seemed alive. The clouds didn't move. They hung, heavy like silent witnesses to something human eyes had yet to comprehend. On the horizon, lightning streaked across the sky without thunder. No sound, just lights cutting through the darkness like celestial blades. And then, for exactly 7 seconds, a sound echoed between the buildings. Deep, vibrating like a muted trumpet. Those who stopped to listen felt the sound in their chests, as if their own bodies were an instrument played by an invisible hand. Was it a fluke of nature, or a direct sign from God? Because when the sky speaks without wind, when lightning comes without rain, when sounds resonate without a source, something greater is trying to be heard. This is the question that echoed through the streets of the most influential city on the planet, but which few dared to ask out loud. Is this merely a whim of the atmosphere, or the foreshadowing of the forgotten words of Christ? In Matthew 24, he warned, "There will be signs in the sky." And now New York, the capital of modernity, finds itself before a sound without a source, a cloud without movement, a trumpet without a trumpeter. The images circulated quickly. Cell phone footage showed people stopping in Times Square with their eyes turned upward. A woman dropped the coffee she was carrying. A man took out his headphones and stood motionless for a few seconds. Another fell to his knees, saying through tears, "It's the Lord, he is speaking." It wasn't an announced event. There was no meteorological alert. There was no forecast on the news. And yet, it was felt, deeply, strangely, spiritually. Because there are events that don't belong to nature's cycle, but to heaven's agenda. What shook the faithful wasn't just the sound, but what came after. When the sky cleared, a vertical beam of white light broke through the clouds and fell exactly on the 9/11 memorial. It was as if a finger of light had chosen to touch the American nation's deepest wound. There, for long minutes, the light remained, immune to the movement of the clouds around it. The silence was almost liturgical. And it was there that the whispers began. It's coming to pass when what Jesus said is coming to pass. Luke 21:11 echoed like an invisible reverberation. There will be great earthquakes, famines and pestilences in various places, and fearful events and great signs from heaven. Could this be one of those signs? In the city's spiritual backrooms, pastors began to communicate. Intercessors knelt down. Churches that had been almost empty during the pandemic reopened their doors. A pastor from Brooklyn reported that he had never seen so many young people enter his church crying without anyone inviting them. They were being pulled, as if by a magnet of the Spirit, he said. Others reported dreams that same night. Trumpets, lights, summons. There was a collective shiver in the invisible world. New York had been touched, and those with eyes to see understood. But was this an isolated event, or part of something bigger, deeper, more extensive? Because what few realized is that in the weeks before, signs had begun to accumulate silently, almost discreetly, like notes of a prophetic score. In Albany, the state capital, residents reported slight tremors for 2 consecutive nights, tremors that didn't appear in any official USGS record. In Syracuse, a strange red cloud was photographed hovering over the city at dusk. In Buffalo, a sound similar to an ancient siren echoed in the middle of the night, recorded by security cameras, but without an identifiable source. The signs are adding up, and New York was the epicenter of something that cannot be explained with radar, or with science, or with skepticism. Because the sky no longer speaks only with thunder and rain, it speaks with codes, with symbols, with spiritual impressions. As the prophet Joel said, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke. The sun shall be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes." Joel 2:30-31. What we saw today, then, is a wonder. Is it a harbinger? Is it a summons? What seems increasingly evident is that we are no longer in ordinary times. Nature has lost its pattern. Humanity has lost its direction. And the heavens have begun to speak louder. Trumpets without instruments, lights without the sun, shadows without clouds. All of this sounds like the beginning of something that Revelation 6 has already described, the opening of the seals. The horses have not yet visibly ridden, but the gates are already ajar. And in this scenario, you who hear, who watch, who feel, can you still hear the voice of God amid the noise of the world? Or has your spirit been numbed by distractions? Because if the sky is screaming and yet you remain deaf, something has been lost. Time is running out. And this isn't just about New York, it's not just about America. It's about humanity, about France, about Brazil, about everyone. Because the signs are given in one nation, but they speak to all. And what if this is the last opportunity? What if this silent cloud is the beginning of the great cloud that will cover the heavens at the return of the Son of Man? What if the sound we heard today is just the first chord of an apocalyptic symphony about to begin? The trumpet sounded, not in the ear, in the spirit. And those who have discernment know this was a call, a cry, a warning. Jesus is at the door. Creation is in labor pains, and the seals are about to be broken. But there's something even more unsettling. The morning after the phenomenon in Manhattan, images began to emerge of a luminous figure captured by a security camera positioned on top of a building on Fifth Avenue. For exactly 23 seconds, a humanoid outline, made of pure light, remained motionless in the overcast sky, hovering above the city. The image wasn't sharp, but it wasn't a blur either. There was form, there was presence, and more than that, there was a gaze. The image went viral on forums and social media, with theories multiplying. Was it an optical anomaly, a digital glitch, or a messenger? The faithful had no doubts. It was an angel, some said. Others went further. It's one of the watchers. They are here. Those who know the scriptures remembered Zechariah 14, when the prophet speaks of a day when the Lord will fight for the nations, and his feet will rest on the Mount of Olives. And if the feet haven't yet touched Jerusalem, could it be that the Lord's eyes are already on New York? It's not the first time the heavens have opened over large cities, but there is something in the synchronicity of the events that points to a divine pattern. First, a sound without a source, then a light that touches the site of the greatest American wound, and then a luminous figure that watches in silence. This is not a coincidence, this is a message. And the scriptures have already warned us about this. In Hebrews 12:26 it is written, "At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens." What does it mean to shake the heavens, but to distort the patterns of the atmosphere, to introduce signs in the firmament, to confuse even the experts of science? Because God doesn't speak only with words, he speaks with lights, with sounds, with absence, with presence, with silence. And it is precisely this silence that became deafening on the streets of New York after the phenomenon. In neighborhoods like Harlem and Queens, pastors reported spontaneous prayer meetings on the sidewalks. There was no pulpit. There was no structure. Just voices crying out to the heavens, "Lord, what are you saying?" This is the point where everything changes. When the noise of the world is replaced by the cry of the Spirit. When the city that never sleeps begins to awaken, spiritually. And in this awakening, a new fear begins to emerge. Not the fear of the supernatural, but the fear of being spiritually blind. Because if the heavens are moving and you don't notice, maybe your heart has closed. Maybe your spirit has become opaque, like the buildings covered by clouds. Romans 8:22 reminds us, "We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time." The lightning without thunder, the sounds without a source, the figure of light. All of these are groans, cries of creation, cries that announce not only pain, but also birth. Something is being born, a time, a judgment, a move, and with it comes the call. And the call is personal. You who watch, who hear, who feel, must understand. The signs are not to scare, they are to awaken. The trumpet doesn't first announce destruction, it announces a summons, and who hears, positions themselves. Who hears sanctifies themselves. Who hears prepares themselves. And if all this were not enough, the Spirit did more. In the early hours of Friday morning, the sky opened again, this time over Central Park. A flash, coming from nowhere, illuminated the tops of the trees with a white glow like snow. For 3 minutes there was no darkness there, and those who were passing by stopped. A child pointed and said, "Daddy, did Jesus arrive?" No one answered, because everyone knew, even without knowing. There was a presence. He who has ears, let him hear. This is the time of spiritual listening, the time to read the signs not with the mind, but with the heart. Isaiah 24 speaks of a groaning earth, a dispersed people, a city empty of meaning. But it also speaks of a remnant, of a people who glorify the Lord even in the midst of ruin. New York, the city of men, was touched by the hand of the Eternal. And those who saw will no longer be the same. And can you still ignore it? Do you still resist the call that comes not from a preacher, not from a video, but from the open heavens? Jesus is returning, and he is using the natural world to awaken the spiritual. He is using sound to break the silence. He is using light to reveal the darkness. He is using New York, a symbol of human power, to remind us that every knee will bow, every tongue will confess. Time is ticking. The clouds are no longer just clouds. The sounds are no longer just sounds. The lights are no longer just lights. Everything is becoming a sign. Everything is becoming a message. Everything is becoming a prophecy. And what are you going to do? Will you go back to your day as if nothing happened? Will you close your heart like someone closing a window to not hear the storm? Or will you respond? Because the Spirit is calling. The heavens have already spoken. The earth has already shaken. The trumpet has already sounded. And you? This question needs to echo louder than any sound. It needs to hurt more than any light in the eyes. Because this question is the key to repentance. And repentance is the key to salvation. Wait no longer. Hide no longer. Doubt no longer. Return. Turn to the Lord while there is still time. Because the signs given to the city are also for you. Because New York is a mirror of the world. And the world is being shaken. The pillars are being shaken. Time is being shortened. And the Spirit says, "Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." Ephesians 5:14. The light is already shining. Share this video with those who need to awaken. Comment here, "I am watching," so that heaven knows you have heard. Subscribe and stay with us because the signs will continue. The Spirit is still speaking and getting louder. Don't sleep. Don't get distracted. Don't give up. Time is running out, but the door is still open. Cry out, pray, sanctify yourself. The King is returning. The heavens have already announced it. The earth is already groaning. The trumpet has already sounded. And now, it is you who needs to respond. May the Lord find you vigilant. May the oil of your lamp never go out.